Hello, my grots and gits. I am back in Norway and I have my microphone back, and I'm really excited to start breaking some of the stuff down for you that we experienced over at the World Championships of Warhammer. So many learning experiences. And today I'm going to be talking all about my list. My list was very unique amongst all the Blood Angels there, and I had a lot of questions about it, and I am excited to give you all the information. Before we do that, guys, here's the deal. This list rocks. It's absolutely amazing. And go forth and use it, please, and just ruin your opponent's days. It is called the Bloody Road, and I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this list and how proud I am of it. You're gonna have wonderful experiences if you start running it, and let's get off to the races. Now, if you wish you had information like this earlier, you could be a member of the Discord, because in the members section of the Happy Crop and Wargaming Discord, I've been talking about this list for quite a while because I hide nothing from my community. So let's jump on into the presentation to freaking day. Oops, sorry. Here we go. We are breaking down the bloodiest of roads. Let's switch on over to it. All right. Is this the best Blood A list? Well, what does it consist of? It is Dante, Mephiston, Sanguinor, Calidus. Those are the 4 characters in the list. We've got 1x5 Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, 1x5 unit of Scouts, 1x5 unit of Infiltrators, a 6-man of Sanguinary Guard, 1 Ballistus, 2 Ball Predators, 2 Normal Predators, and 2 Lancers. I think it comes out to like 14 units, because what is that? 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 units, exactly. 14 units is plenty of units to get whatever action secondaries you need done. It's plenty of units to put lots of pressure on your opponent, and it's plenty of units to be able to screen out whatever you need to. There's a couple things that you might notice here. You notice I have a lot of lone ops, and that's going to be really, really important when we start breaking it down. Each one of the units in this army have a very specific job that they're doing. This is an extremely meticulously crafted list. Now, there are things that we might be able to swap around in it, and I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. So what this video is going to talk about is I'm going to break down why everything in this list is in this list. It's really important. I'm going to talk about how you're going to use it into melee armies, how you're going to use it into shooting armies. I'm going to talk about which detachment it is in and why it is in that detachment. And then I'm going to talk about its record at the World Championships. And I'm going to talk about anything that I may or may not change going forward. So let's get into it. First off, why is this Liberator Assault Group? This is probably the biggest, most prominent question I got from opponents, from viewers alike. Why is this Liberator Assault Group, and why is it not Gladius or Ironstorm? Because it is a tank gunline, and there is no doubt about it being a tank gunline. Guys, what most people seem to be missing about Liberator Assault Group is that it loves to support shooting. We have access to an advance and shoot strat, and we have access to a fall back and shoot strat. So it's very hard to tag the tanks that you're trying to tag, because they can always just fall back and shoot. And it's very hard to predict what angles that you have to sit at so that I can't shoot you, because suddenly I roll a 6 to advance with my Lancer, and now my Lancer gets to move 16 inches instead of 10 inches. And that can just completely end a game. So it really screws up with your opponent's staging points. It really, really screws with your opponent's ability to try to trap you in combat as well. Super important that you guys understand that. Now, other reasons why we want to be in Liberator Assault Group, because I would agree, if that was the only reason, you would probably still want to be in Gladius, or Liberator, or Ironstorm, because in Ironstorm you could get the Tech Marines enhancement, or in Gladius you could get the entire army falling back and shooting once per game. Well, in Liberator Assault Group, I punch up like crazy with all of my units. Suddenly my units that hit like hit super, super hard. Let me give you an example. A 5-man unit of Jump Pack Assault Intercessors, not including pistols, not including charge mortals, on average are going to cause 4.2 dead orc boys if they were to charge, say, an orc boy squad. However, in Liberator Assault Group, a JPI squad will kill 9.6 orc boys. Remember, that's not including pistols. That is not including the charge mortals. So and it's not including strats either. So if I want to pump strats into my 5-man JPI, I will kill 10 orc boys and a warlord who's leading them, for example. You're not doing that with JPI in any other detachment. With my 5-man JPI, I'm killing a scout sentinel. I am killing I can kill rhinos with my JPI and Liberator Assault Group. I cannot do that in any other detachment. So it makes my units punch up like crazy. My freaking scouts become nightmares. So my 1 unit of 5 scouts that my opponent's like, oh, it doesn't matter if they forward deploy them very much. Well, suddenly they move 6 inches and they charge my opponent's first, or in my first turn, because my opponent didn't worry about a unit of scouts charging, and they run in and they split their attacks and kill 2 to 3 Eldar MSU units, or they slaughter a rhino. It's possible for them to kill a rhino, which is absolutely bonkers. Put that on Dante's unit, and then suddenly Dante's unit is an absolute menace. Makes the Sanguiner disgusting. It makes Mephiston disgusting. It is terrifying what Liberator Assault Group gives us. Not to mention, this works in both WTC style and in GW style, so you don't have to worry about the... I believe it's WTC right now that does not allow you to use one of the Gladius stratagem to put yourself in a different doctrine if you're not in one of them already. So you don't have to worry about nonsense like that, because everything is on the strats. So it's not Ironstorm. I do miss out on the 1 reroll per unit, but I really don't need it because my melee units do not require Oath of Moments. My melee units, Dante squad already hits on 2s. Dante himself already has lethals. I'm going to have the mortals coming in from the JPI. Mephiston is not going into crazy targets anyway, so none of my melee units need Oath of Moments, meaning I can always use Oath of Moment on my shooting units. The Lancers typically don't need Oath of Moment. The Ball Predators already get to advance and shoot, so I don't need to worry about spending my advance and shoot strat on them. Do you see how there's redundancies absolutely everywhere? So I don't need my strats everywhere. I don't need my Oath of Moment everywhere. This makes the entire army be able to function actually without any of the special rules, which is kind of wild. So that is why it's Liberator Assault Group. All right, now let's start breaking down just the general theme of how does this freaking list function. Effectively, here's the way it goes. I have a mobile gun line with overwhelming long-range threats. All right, I've got 2 predators. Each one of those has 2 las cannons, so that's going to be 4 las cannons plus 2 hunter killer missiles. So just for simplicity, so we're going to go with 4 las cannons plus 2 hunter killer missiles. I've got 2 ball predators. Each one of them starts with a hunter killer missile. So right now I've got 4 hunter killer missiles and 4 las guns. Then I've got a Ballistus Dreadnought who has 2 las cannons and 2 crack missiles. Those las cannons on the Ballistus, remember, automatically reroll, so he doesn't need Oath of Movement either. So now I've got 6 las cannons and 4 hunter killers. And then with my 2 lancers, I've got 4 laser destructors, which the lancers have innate rerolls, so they don't really need Oath either. So I've got 4 laser destructors, I've got 6 las cannons, I've got 4 hunter killer missiles that are coming out. Then I've got a lot of anti-elite infantry shooting coming from the 2 predators and the 2 balls. Each ball having D6 plus 3 strength 6 AP2 damage to auto-hitting flamers at 18-inch range, not to mention the 2 heavy flamers. And each of the predators having their 6 shots from their autocannon, which goes to strength 9 AP2, damage 3 against your infantry. So I have a lot of anti-elite infantry shooting, and I've got a lot of anti-tank shooting. Then you stack in how much anti-infantry shooting do I have? Well, people tend to forget what happens when you got lancers with the 2 Fragstorm launchers that get to shoot out with their blast actions. I got 2 heavy flamers on each of the ball predators. I actually have a decent amount of anti-infantry shooting. I've got a solid amount of anti-elite infantry shooting, and I've got a fantastic amount of anti-tank shooting. And all of my anti-tank shooting is long range. So if I'm going against, say, Leagues of Votann, they are screwed because I completely control the firing lanes. When I'm going against your Imperial Guard, a lot of their really scary weapons are going to be 24 to 18-inch ranges. So I actually outrange Imperial Guard quite well with this gun line. It is very, very efficient. I don't outrange absolutely everything, but I outrange most things, and I hit harder without the need for rerolls in most scenarios. And when I do need rerolls, my Oath gets to kick in. It is so darn powerful. Now, I hit 75% as hard as a normal melee pressure list. Dante's squad, by itself, will hold the line against any melee pressure list. He is faster than any melee pressure list because he gets +1 to advance and charge, which means if I roll the 6 to advance, the guy's unit moves 19 inches and then is +1 to charge. This by itself will force, if I'm going against, say, another gun line, it'll force that gun line to actually have to deploy really far back, because otherwise I can just go touch turn 1, stage all my tanks, and insta win the game. If I'm playing against melee pressure lists and they want to start staging their melee units to get them, closer, they get really screwed with the way they have to deploy, because you have to account for Dante. Then let's say I'm playing an army that has a lot of melee pressure and they go first and they get to move forward and they want to just say ignore Mr. Dante's threat range. Well, the problem with that is now they can't stage to charge into my tank line safely, because the second they stage to charge into my tank line safely, then Dante goes and hits them, kills them, ties them up, doesn't care that they get to hit him, because Sangard are going to be -1 to hit, -1 to wound. I'm going to have armor contempt in melee, which means that you're not killing my Sangard in melee most of the time. There are, of course, scenarios where that could be different. Then I've got the Sanguinor. So if you do happen to get one of my tanks somewhere, the Sanguinor is going to come down. He's going to fight first. He's going to cause pile-in problems. I'm going to have Mephiston staged next to one of my tanks, meaning that if you charge into that tank, he's going to heroic in. He's going to get the charge bonus, or not the charge bonus, but he's going to get the Blood Angels charge bonus. And then he's going to be fighting first and causing havoc. So my lone ops cause big, big problems. Speaking of lone ops, let's talk about how the lone ops function in this army. I have 3 lone ops with fights first. This makes interacting with my army incredibly challenging, because you cannot charge one of those lone ops with skirmishing units. Can't be done. If you charge Mephiston with a unit of Storm Boys, your Storm Boys die. If you charge the Sanguinor with a unit of Warp Talons, the Warp Talons die. It is just how it works, which is a huge problem for armies that are trying to deal with the lone ops, because typically you can't really shoot them off unless you get super close to my threat range, which means I'm going to get the jump on you, which is a big problem for you. So you want to have to deal with them with these little skirmishing units. It becomes almost impossible, however, with the way that I've got the army structured. Now, Mephiston in particular is exceptionally tough. So I can position him on a forward objective, and I'm going to kind of show you this on TTS here in a minute. I can position him pretty far on a forward objective, have him in cover. He's T5, then he's going to get cover with a 2-up armor save, a 5-up invulnerable save, and a 4-up feel no pain. Guys, you don't kill him by shoving a predator at him. It doesn't work. So which means you have to put a real threat to be able to handle him. Typically, while he doesn't kill people like you think he does, like he's not the beat stick character that a lot of people are afraid of him being, he will wipe any skirmishing unit. But in order to kill him, you're going to have to dedicate a lot more than his points value to killing him. Which means if you want to kill Mephiston, you're going to have to put like a Dorn up to shoot him. And then when you put the Dorn up to shoot him, my army gets to nuke your Dorn for free, which is a trade I'm willing to make every single day. It's so amazingly good. It just cripples people. The Calidus, which people forget, is a no slouch fights first character as well. That sweet AP4. Now, I'm not saying I use her as a beat stick either, but she can be in positions where you can't shoot her, which forces you to charge her with a skirmishing unit, which is a big problem for a lot of skirmishing units. Now, it's not something that I like to do, but I have her there and she can serve that purpose if necessary. All right, so I've got these lone ops that have fights first, which are exceptionally challenging to interact with. I've got the Sanguinor who's going to do his heroic in for free, which is going to wreck a pile-in. It's going to wreck a charge. Or so a lot of times, honestly, I would actually end up just rapid ingressing him, because I know my opponent's not going to charge, and I would just have him put him like, say, in the center objective, on the center objective, with a rapid ingress, and my opponent's like, oh crap, now you're going to score primary in your turn 2 or 3 or whatever turn it is. So I would do that with him all the time, and since he's lone up, they can't shoot him off. If they're not already positioned to charge, then they won't be positioned to charge. It's a big freaking problem. So this is actually the way that the list actually sets up. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the, in particular, melee matchup problems and how I solve the melee matchup problems with this list. All right. So effectively, what you do in your melee matchups, and I had one Blood Angels mirror that just worked perfectly on, because it was impossible for the Blood Angels player to win, even though he was a great player and he had a very strong list. More or less, what's going to happen is I'm going to shove one tank on an objective. This is going to force the opponent to trade a more valuable melee unit for the tank. Said unit then instantly dies, and my lone ops can make this even more painful. So what I mean by that, actually what I'll do let me just switch to the TTS view here real fast so I can kind of just demonstrate what I'm talking about with this. All right. So if you look at this right here, I'm going to have this Ballistus Dreadnought, and he is just hanging on to this objective right here. I could have Mephiston back here. I could have Mephiston back here. I could have Mephiston here. It doesn't really matter where Mephiston is, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he's just tapping the objective. And let's say that you, being an aggressive player, are like, oh crap, I really have to take that objective off of you. So you're going to send your JPI up to charge my Ballistus Dreadnought. Well, the second you charge my Ballistus Dreadnought, say you roll an 8 or whatever, and you're going to try to get some mortals onto him, now Mephiston actually will heroic in, and he's going to kill for the JPI. This guy's not going to do anything to the Ballistus Dreadnought. I'm going to maintain control of the objective, and Mephiston is actually in a better position. That's what I mean. Now, let's say Mephiston is not positioned because I have him doing something else. Well, these guys are going to charge in. I have a backup. Now, the Sanguinora comes down and does the exact same thing. Boom. And now I still control the objective. Okay, let's say the Sanguinora is coming down somewhere else. No freaking problem. First off, the goal would be to have this guy in position to overwatch, but let's say I couldn't do that because my opponent was a good canny opponent and avoided the overwatch. Let's say I don't kill any of the assault intercessors and you do effectively take the objective off of me. Well, now I shoot them to death and I take the objective off of you. What this means effectively is that you, at best, with your 5-man unit JPI, at 100% best, what you're going to do is you're going to deny me primary for a turn. If you want to kill my Ballistus, it's going to take a much more threatening unit. You're going to have to send in, say, like a 10-man of Death Company led by Lamartes or something in order to actually threaten to kill my Ballistus. And that's going to be a 300-point unit. That 300-point unit can come in, and maybe they kill the Ballistus, but I'm really happy for that to happen, because now in my turn, I'm going to flame you to death, I'm going to grenade you to death, I'm going to shoot the Lancer. Your entire unit's going to completely die until I'm ready to charge in with Mephiston or my tank and just tank shock and finish the rest of the unit. So you can see I'm happy to trade my 130-point unit Dreadnought for your 300-point unit of Death Company with a leader. Or whatever. Say we're playing into Orcs. If it's a 200-point unit of Knobs with a leader, no problem. I'm happy to make the exact same trade, right? So this is why this list really, really wrecks all melee matchups. Melee mirrors get destroyed by the Bloody Road, so I highly recommend you give it a try. Meanwhile, while I'm staging up, I have Dante sitting in like this perfect ruin right here. I'm going to have the scouts screening him, so if you try to charge into Dante's squad, you're going to have to charge the scouts, which will allow Dante to then heroic intervene. And if Dante heroically intervenes and then kills you, which he will because his squad wrecks opponents, now suddenly he's just that much closer for my turn when I decide to advance and charge and murder something. If it's a shooting matchup, I probably won't be screening with scouts like this, simply because I don't want my scouts to get shot to death, and the scouts are probably going to be sitting in this little pocket so that you can't draw a line of sight into them. It's really that simple to counter it. Dante squad is perfectly safe, and now they can actually just very easily, with a simple advance roll, go anywhere they want. Remember, he's +1 to advance and charge, which means with an advance and charge, he at minimum moves 14 inches. And at maximum, they'll go 19 inches before charging with +1. It makes the threat range terrifyingly good. Just to show you over here, like I could have this Predator in a melee matchup. He's happy to sit in the middle. I'm also, a lot of times, very happy to do things like this in a shooting matchup. I don't mind if you want to move out to kill my Predator, because the second you want to move out to kill my Predator, let's say it's right here, and you want to take this line and shoot me here, now I'm going to be in position to come out with a Lancer, and let's say we have a ball here, and say we have a Lancer here. Now suddenly I'm going to be in position to nuke your Tyrannofex or whatever unit you're shooting with here, and that means that I am going to win the long range war. You see how it works? So more or less the playstyle is fairly similar based off of whether I'm going against a melee or against a shooting matchup. And that is the way that the army positions and plays on the tabletop. So let's go back, and I'm going to talk about some of the unique issues with the whatever it's called, with the shooting matchup. Where's my PowerPoint view? Here we are. All right, cool. Yeah, so we kind of, just to finish off on melee, we kind of touched on most of this already. You get your deadly melee units that want to be charging into my tanks. You really want to charge them. Then, well, the deal is you can't, because Dante's just going to fish them out for me. Which means if you want to stage behind a huge ruin to make sure that you get an advance and charge in your Wa turn, or in your whatever, let's say you're playing triple ACDC, it won't work because Dante's squad is just going to come fish you out. They are the bunker busters, which means you can't stage to get into my gun line. It is so freaking powerful. One last thing about this melee matchup. Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. A lot of times I'll tend to use my ball predators as my melee bullies because they'll advance up. They're fast. They move 12. They get to reroll advances. They'll get onto the objective with their damage 2 flamer and then their 2 heavy flamers. They're going to more or less just shoot out any of the point equivalent melee units. And then they're going to be staged to get a devastating overwatch for whenever you want to move in your turn. So they really control movements. I love the ball predators. They cause lots of problems. Now let's talk about the gunline matches, how we play a little bit differently here. All right, so in the gunline matchup, my Lancers positioning, what they do is they counter all of your long-range threats. So if you have a Terran effects, or if you have, heaven forbid, exocrines, which are the most bonkers data sheet out there, my Lancers devour those exocrines, which you desperately need in this matchup if you want to enable the rest of your army. They outrange everything, and they outdamage everything at range. Almost everything. There are certain things that can get them, but not much, to be honest with you. I typically use the predators as my more sacrificial pieces that I'm going to use to draw out my enemies so that my enemy will expose themselves to kill the predators. Then my lancers, with the predator and the ballistists who are left, will then pick off my enemies' really big shootings. I use ball predators as if it is a shooting matchup and the ball predators seem fairly useless. They're the ones that I then will put out to be on the objectives, like I was just demonstrating on the last slide when I went to the TTS view. My lone ops are super, super key here for forcing limited infantry count to actually have to counter my lone ops because you can't really get in range to shoot them. And if you can, you better bring something devastatingly strong to pop through Mephiston because if you don't, Mephiston's going to live and you're going to expose yourself for no freaking reason. Once again, Dante's just operating as the bunker buster. It is super, super important. So gunline matchups, guys, I got the lone ops who are going to be doing action, sitting there, getting all the primary that I want. If you want to deny with your very limited infantry, that's super cool for me because my ball predators are going to overwatch and murder them, or my fight versus lone ops are going to kill them anyway, which will still allow Dante to get out and tie up all of your tanks. Slaughter 2 of them on the charge, tag 3 of them when he's done. It causes big freaking problems. All right, so the list freaking rocks. It's a nightmare for your opponents to deal with. So how could I alter it? Let's talk about that. All right. One big thing that I am considering, which I'm not sure it's what I want to do, but I am considering, I could drop a tank for a second JPI squad and upgrade one of my ball predators into a Reaper. The Reaper would give me a lot more profound anti-infantry shooting. The problem is your Reapers just are nowhere near as mobile as the balls, and as the balls, as the ball predators. So I am very loath to do it, but I could see a world where I would want to do it. That is something real, and honestly, having the second JPI squad would be very nice. I would love to be able to have one JPI squad on the table and one in Deep Strike. So that is something that I would truly consider. If I were to drop something, chances are high it would be one of the normal predators, not the balls. The ball predators just they're too freaking important. So if I was gonna drop something, I would probably drop that. I would probably drop the ball, or I would probably drop a normal predator, get a second JPI squad, and upgrade the remaining predator into a third lancer. Yeah, I think I like that more. The 3 lancers. That's something I would really consider in this list. Now, there are some non-negotiables with the list. So if you want to take this and make it your own, then it titled the list as the Bloody Road, because it's going to drag you down the road and it's going to be a bloody one. There are a few non-negotiables. Now, there are other great Blood Angels lists out there, okay? So you can do whatever you want with that. But if you want to run this style list, you have to keep the lone ups. The Sanguiner, Mephiston, Calidus are essential. They're just required. You must have them because they're so critical for giving you early objective play that your opponent can't interact with. You desperately need them. The Sanguiner is also critical for what happens when you screw up positioning and an opponent gets into a tank that you don't want them to get into. Sanguiner comes down, wrecks them, and then he gets to move forward and he gets to go tie something up as well. Dante is absolutely required. Without Dante, the list does not work. Without Dante, your opponent's going to be able to stage their super powerful melee threats in ruins getting ready to charge into your line. So you have to have Dante because without him, you can't just rapidly respond and wreck those staging points. Then lastly, you need to make sure that you actually have the firepower to make the gun line work. So if you want to alter things, my recommendation is no, don't alter it. But if you do want to alter it, my next recommendation would be let's drop one predator. We'll upgrade the third predator, the remaining predator into a lancer, and then we'll get a second JPI squad. That's going to also be a very effective way of running things. The ballistas, I would keep the ballistas simply because it's very nice to have his shooting into a unit that you don't have oath on. Sometimes you have to shoot the rhino as well, and it's just super important to be able to have the reliability of re-rolling hit rolls, and that's what the ballistas does. Not to mention a 2-up armor save in cover is a total nightmare to deal with. I typically find my opponents don't even bother trying because I have the threat of AOCing them as well, which means the ballistas just activates turn after turn and your opponent never deals with them. He just gets you so much freaking value. So these are the non-negotiables if you want to alter the list. Now let's talk about the record of the WCW, what I did well with the list, what I did wrong, if it was the list fault or if there was user errors in the record, and just give you a little bit insight into the way the games went. All right, so my record of the WCW, quite happy with it. I went 4-4, broke even with it. This was a different kind of a tournament. I can tell you that right now. This was about the minimum level that I was going to be happy with. So I am happy with my score. I probably would not have been happy had I done worse than this, but I was shooting for more of the 6-2 is really where I really wanted to end up. But at 4-4, I'm pleased. Let's talk about some of the wins. So I won against Guard, against Mexico's top player. It was a 70-67 win. Imperial Guard is the best army in the game. And this guy, Xavier, was a great player. So mad respect to him. It was a very close match. My next matchup that I won was against Blood Angels, and it was against Alberto from Spain. Alberto was an amazing player. The problem is he was running a traditional Blood Angel list. He had 2 units of Death Company. One was led with a Fight First Chaplain, and one was led with a Lamartes. And then he had the Dante Brick, and then he had like 3 units of JPI. Melee pressure armies just break across my list, and I just decimated him. There's just he really didn't have a chance. I ran it into a Death Guard matchup. Death Guard are actually very good, and they're very scary right now, but the problem is I can deal with anything they want to throw out. If they want to throw out vehicle heavies, I'm going to pop them. If they want to throw out Terminators, I got plenty of flat 3 that's going to be going into them. Imperial Knights, I played against Brian Jones, who's probably the best Imperial Knights player in the world. Now this was a interesting matchup because we played this on GW7, which is, I don't know if you know what that map is. I probably should have had a slide showing up on, but basically there's no firing lanes on it, which was typically this list just wrecks any Imperial Knights. Imperial Knights have no chance against this list. On GW7, Imperial Knights have a much better game plan against it. But we did still go with a 95-81 against Brian Jones, which was supremely proud. And Brian was an awesome opponent, so I had a blast playing with him. Now, there were 4 losses as well. Let's talk about some of these losses. And as you can see, a lot of them were super close. So 2 of them were 3-point games. One matchup I played against the Ultramarines. And against the Ultramarines, I ended up losing. It was 64-67 to Mark from Virginia. Mark played a great game. Mad respect to that guy. He was an awesome dude. It came down to the end of round 5. He had gone second. Was he going to be able to draw a secondary that would give him the points? He drew the secondary that gave him the points. That's Warhammer, baby. That's how it goes. I played the game to win. He got the secondary draw he needed. He took the win. How can you complain about that, right? I will say I actually did make a mistake in that matchup. I severely underestimated his army list, and I basically and I gave him the opportunity. I didn't throw it away. I gave him the opportunity to get a really good lead. So at the end of I believe round 3 or beginning of round 3, I was down by almost 30 points. I fought it the way back up to a 3-point loss. So honestly, I'm very happy with the matchup, and I'm very happy with the opponent. He was a rock star. Then I played into Davis from Virginia with a Rhett Cadre. Once again, the exact same thing happened. So it's the end of the game. I am up by 3. He's already discarded every single card that can give him more than 3 victory points. The only card that he's still in his deck that he can give him more than 3 victory points is Sabotage. He happened to, he actually had a dead draw, and then he spent a CP to withdraw the card, got a Sabotage, went into my deployment zone, got it for 6 points. Once again, nothing you can do about that. 2 great matches, 2 fantastic opponents, had an absolute blast with them. My matchup into the Tyranids, I played against Joachim from Sweden. I went first on Linchpin, which put me at a pretty big disadvantage. So what I did is I got aggressive, and I tried to break out. And I was almost successful. I did have one pretty obvious error. It was the end of the weekend. I was very tired and I just made a clear mistake, and Uwickham pounced on it as he should have because he was a good opponent. And probably could have made this a 5-point loss instead of a 10-point loss had I not made that mistake. But you know what? He beat me. I'm happy for him. He did an awesome job. And then the loss that I had into guard. You guys might have seen some of my other videos. There was I put big asterisks because I'm actually quite disappointed that my opponent did not concede this game. This was a game where something horribly was played just horribly wrong. Somehow, I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I do have it on video. There was a terrain piece that had been moved, and it allowed a 6.5-inch long Rogodorn to deploy behind a piece of terrain without touching it when the piece of terrain was supposed to be 5 inches off of the table edge. Now, I spoke to my opponent about this. He said it wasn't him. He said he didn't move it. He doesn't know how it got moved. And he apologized for how that changed the entire dynamics of the game, which it changed the entire game. I set the table up so I know the table was set up correctly. And I took a video so I know that he deployed incorrectly. He said it was completely incidental. I am inclined to believe him. This is an example of a time where the Otis would have been on him to just go ahead and concede the matchup because he played it wrong, and it very, very wrong, and it completely changed the entire game. So I don't even really this is an official loss, but I don't I have zero bad feelings about it because I personally feel like I got cheated. So that's the way the list performed. The list performed freaking awesome, guys. Errors that happened were user errors. As I'm getting more familiar with the list, I'm gonna keep playing this list. It is an absolute nightmare. I encourage all of you guys to just completely try it out and terrorize your friends and your foes alike on the tabletop. If you have questions about the list, you can find me in the Discord and you can poke me about it, or you can book a coaching call where we can make your own championship list that can also dominate people. If you want to use the list in public, use it away. The name of it is The Bloody Road. Make sure that you strike fear into the hearts of your foes with it. With that, everybody, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to make a few more list reviews of some of the most interesting and amazing lists at the WCW. I'll have those being released the next few days. So with that, Trump on everybody, and I hope you have an amazing, blessed day. Bye.